Kesha Williams believed she was alone that morning. She wiped the polished surface of the Italian marble dresser without knowing that Richard Thompson, the multi-millionaire owner of the mansion, was watching her through the crack of the closet door. Hidden in the shadows, he whispered, "Interesting, very interesting," as his phone secretly recorded her. Spread across the dresser was $15,000 in crisp bills deliberately placed there. It was one of Richard's infamous tests. For 15 years, he had laid similar traps for secretaries, drivers, gardeners, and housekeepers. Almost all failed, confirming his cruel belief that poor people were naturally dishonest. Today, it was Kesha's turn. She was 38, a mother of 3, and had been hired that same morning after the previous cleaner was abruptly dismissed. She walked into the mansion unaware she was stepping into an ambush. Richard waited for the routine to unfold, the startled expression, the cautious glances, the slow hand reaching toward temptation. But Kesha didn't follow the script. She took out her phone, photographed the money, and dialed the number. "Yes, it's a security matter," she said calmly. "There's $15,000 left here. The homeowner must have forgotten it. I'll secure it and leave him a note." Richard blinked in confusion. Kesha gathered the bills one by one, placed them in an envelope, sealed it, and left it clearly on the desk with a neatly written explanation. Then she returned to her work as though nothing unusual happened. For 3 hours, Richard watched her through hidden cameras. He saw her dust bookshelves he had neglected for months, polish framed photos with careful attention, and even water plants he had forgotten existed. When she finally left, he found himself unsettled. For the first time, someone had passed his test. More than passed, she had displayed a level of integrity he couldn't comprehend. What he didn't know was that Kesha had seen through the trap the moment she saw the money. And she already knew how to turn his arrogance into an opportunity. That night, as she helped her children with homework in their small apartment, she told her mother what had happened. Dorothy, a retired professor who once lost her job for reporting discrimination, said, "Honey, men like him set traps to justify their prejudice. Good thing you know how to play smarter." Richard, meanwhile, could not sleep. Before sunrise, he called the agency demanding Kesha be assigned to him permanently. He was obsessed. He believed he'd finally found a truly honest employee, but Kesha was not merely honest, she was observant. She had a business degree, years of corporate experience, and a lifetime of knowing exactly how privileged people underestimated women like her. The moment Richard tried to test her, she recognized the pattern. What he thought was a simple honesty test was about to become his greatest mistake. Over the following weeks, Richard escalated his traps. He left jewelry in the bathroom, credit cards in open wallets, sensitive documents exposed. Each time, Kesha photographed everything, secured items properly, and left notes. Richard watched in awe, convinced she was exceptional. He didn't realize she had started recording him as well. His comments grew more revealing. "People from your community don't usually have discipline," he remarked smugly. Kesha smiled politely, but every word was caught on a recording app her daughter had installed. By the 3rd week, Richard felt comfortable enough to brag. "You're different from the others. Not like the last one, she was Latina. You know how they are." Again, she recorded everything, and what Richard could not have imagined was that Kesha heard even more about him when he thought she wasn't around. One night at the country club, disguised in a borrowed waitress uniform, she overheard Richard boasting to friends about his perfect, obedient cleaner. She memorized every face and every word. Richard had unknowingly provided her with the final pieces she needed. That night, Kesha called her cousin Jennifer, a Harvard-trained lawyer specializing in discrimination and financial crimes. When Kesha revealed everything she had documented, recordings, photos, paperwork, Jennifer went silent for a long moment. "Kesha," she finally said, "you just uncovered something massive. This man sits on the board of a charity that receives $15 million a year. If we can prove embezzlement and racial discrimination, we can bring down an entire network." Kesha agreed to keep collecting evidence. Richard, in his arrogance, kept feeding her information. He bragged about charity boards. He dismissed complex documents as too complicated for someone like you. He introduced her to wealthy friends as an example of a well-behaved worker. At one of his parties, she served drinks with a calm smile while powerful men joked about training employees. She memorized their names: mayors, CEOs, auditors, all linked to Urban Hope Foundation, the charity funneling millions away from black communities. By the time Richard planned to publicly fire her at a board meeting just to demonstrate proper discipline, Kesha and Jennifer already had a 200-page dossier ready. The day of the meeting arrived. Kesha entered pushing a coffee cart. Richard announced loudly, "This is Kesha Williams. She started strong, but you'll soon understand why she must be dismissed." But before he could continue, Jennifer walked in with federal agents, journalists, and a court order. Actually, Jennifer said, Ms. Williams is here to present evidence. Kesha turned on a projector. The first image was Richard planting the $15,000. Gasps filled the room. The next slide played audio of Richard making racist remarks. Then came screenshots of bank transfers, fraudulent contracts, and documents showing how charity money was laundered into shell companies owned by men in that very room, $15 million in donations. Less than $3 million reaching schools. Within minutes, 5 people were handcuffed, including Richard. You thought you were testing my honesty, Kesha said, looking him in the eye. But for 3 months, I was testing your humanity. You failed every time. Richard begged, please, I have a family. You should have thought of that before you stole from ours. His empire collapsed in less than an hour. 18 months later, Kesha sat in her new 23rd floor office. Her company K. Williams Consulting was one of the most respected auditing firms in the country. She helped charities ensure transparency and prevent discrimination. Her daughter Aaliyah, now thriving in a private school, helped organize files after classes. Marcus excelled in math. Jaden finally had a backyard to play in. Across the city, Richard lived in a tiny apartment with peeling walls. After serving 2 years in prison, he worked as a night janitor. His name was forever tied to the scandal exposed by the woman he tried to humiliate. Kesha sometimes visited schools in poor neighborhoods to speak with students. When a young girl once asked, "How did you know you'd defeat such a powerful man?" she smiled gently. "I didn't know. I only knew that when you stand for what is right, even the impossible becomes possible." One afternoon, at a red light, Richard saw Kesha through the window of her new car. Their eyes met briefly. He lowered his head. She drove on without hatred, without revenge, only peace, because the greatest justice is not destroying those who try to break you. It is building a life so strong that their cruelty becomes irrelevant. Richard thought he was testing her, but life was testing him and he failed every test he created. Kesha, however, proved that dignity and intelligence always rise above arrogance.